Revealed, 3 spine-chilling hours of terrifying hauntings and sinister secrets to haunt your sleep. Lily stood in her dimly lit kitchen, slicing vegetables with trembling hands. The once comforting hum of the suburban life felt like a mechanized echo of dread. Every flickering light cast a sinister shadow across the walls, orchestrating her loneliness like a wicked conductor. It was just another night preparing dinner for her kids, Emily and Noah, but the air quaked with an unsettling unease. The phone rang. An unlisted number. Her heart raced. "Hello?" She answered, her voice a thin thread in the heavy silence. "Look closely," a chilling whisper crawled into her ear. "The people you trust, they are not who they seem." The line went dead. Lily shivered, chalking it up to stress and fatigue. She cut the vegetables, hands frigid, thoughts clouded with shadows. Distant laughter reached her ears, reminders of the life she once had, but they turned sour, twining around her thoughts like a vine of despair. Dinner smelled familiar, but even the aroma of simmering tomato sauce couldn't comfort her. She glanced outwards, seeing familiar faces drifting past in the twilight: the Thompsons, the Millers. Once trusted, now indifferent. Their shadows stretched ominously across the crisp, manicured lawns, faces painted with false smiles. Word of a missing local girl began to creep into the conversations of other suburbanites. It was whispered over coffee and playdates, as if speaking louder would summon the terror of the whispering man, an entity tangled in the folklore of their quiet town. A chilling shiver ran down Lily's spine. Before she could process what had slipped into her subconscious, another call interrupted her increasingly chaotic thoughts. "Did you hear what happened to Sarah? You should watch her," the voice hissed, the sound sending icy ripples over her skin. Lily dropped the knife, it clattered against the countertop, urgency clawing at her gut. Sarah was her best friend, a pillar in her crumbling world. How could she be a threat? Panic choked her breath as she recalled the strange noises from the children's room last night. Emily had cried out for her, teary-eyed, whispering there was a voice calling her name. Noah had insisted on sleeping in the same bed after claiming he saw shadows creeping across the corners of his sight. But those were just childhood fears, right? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As time crawled, Lily felt stalked by the suffocating darkness. Each creak of the floorboard sent her heart into a frenzy. She grasped the edges of the counter, her knuckles turning white, thoughts of safety scattered like autumn leaves in the wind. Clenching her jaw, Lily steeled herself. She had to confront Sarah, to protect her children. Suddenly, the lights flickered, casting twisted shadows against the walls. A sound like whispering filled her ears, desperate and hollow. Lily, her breath hitched, cold dread clamped around her chest. The voice echoed like a forgotten tune, too dark to recognize. Fear surged, unmistakable and demanding. "Mommy, please." Emily's small voice broke through the air, shattering her focus. The children were awake, lost in a world of terror. In that moment, heart pounding in her throat, Lily glanced out the window. The silhouettes of her neighbors loomed. Smiles vanished, replaced with something much darker. A shiver of realization washed over her as she felt the weight of malevolence thick in the air. A question gripped her: how far would she go to protect her family from forces that now lurked beyond the veil of her once safe neighborhood? And as shadows swallowed the light, she knew the true horror was only just beginning. Lily's heart thundered in her chest, a wild drumbeat of terror. She turned to her children, their small forms clinging to each other, eyes wide with fear. The last remnants of her calm shattered like glass, revealing shards of panic beneath. "Stay close," she mumbled, stepping towards the living room, where the oppressive silence loomed heavier than before. Shadows loitered at the edges of the room, as if waiting for her to make the wrong move. "Mommy, is it okay?" Emily's trembling voice broke through the tension. Lily forced a breath, straining to find her motherly strength. "Yes, sweetie," she said, though doubt clawed at her insides. But the whispers persisted, swirling like a tempest. Sarah floated through her mind, taunting her, demanding to be addressed. She couldn't shake the feeling of dread that coiled around her, tightening with each second. She needed to act. Calling Sarah was no longer just an option, it felt like a necessity that gnawed at her sanity. She retraced her steps to the kitchen, phone clutched tightly in her hand, fingers shaking. The cursed object was slick against her palm, the dread seeping into her skin. The ongoing noise from her back door drew her attention. Movement. "Mommy?" Noah whimpered, pressing against his sister. Lily's breath caught as she glanced towards the door. A figure stood outside, cloaked in darkness. It flickered against the porch light, a warped vision of one of her neighbors. Was it someone she could trust? Could she let them inside after everything she just heard? "Lock the doors!" she yelled, urgency breaking free from her throat. Emily's eyes widened, but she darted away, her small hands fumbling with the locks while Noah stared at the door, frozen with fear. The figure continued to shift, arms unnaturally long, twisting near the edges of visibility. In one heartbeat, it could have been a friendly face, but the next, shadows cloaked all familiarity. "Lily," it crooned, the voice unrecognizable, yet oddly familiar in a disturbing way. Her heart raced as she cursed her own cowardice. She returned to her phone and dialed Sarah's number. Each ring resonated like a ticking clock, growing louder in her ears. Finally, a pickup. "Hello." Sarah's voice was flat, almost drowned out by the static that hummed beneath. "Sarah. Are you okay?" Panic poured from her voice. She couldn't mask it any longer. "What? Lily, what is going on? Just tell me you're safe. Please." A low chuckle tinged with malice filled the receiver. It was unmistakable, not Sarah at all. "You should really watch out for her, dear," it hissed, the voice wrapping around her like the acrid smoke from a dying fire. "Who is this? What do you want?" The line went dead again, silence fueling her dread. Fingers trembling, she glanced outside just in time to see the figure lunging towards the door, mouth stretching too wide, teeth glimmering in the light. She almost screamed as fear gripped her. Emily was still fiddling with the locks, but Noah's wide eyes caught sight of the figure. "Mommy! What's that?" he cried, his small voice piercing through her fear. Without hesitation, Lily scooped them both up and dashed towards the back of the house. She needed to escape this nightmare, to get somewhere safe, but where? As they moved, she could hear the whispers again, louder now, a cacophony of voices that blended into one suffocating mass. Lily, Lily, they were coming for her family. She could feel it in her bones. The door to the basement loomed open like a gaping mouth, darkness spilling out like a hungry beast waiting to swallow them whole. Down there? She hesitated, glancing back at the front door. Was there any hope left in the light? But a loud, jarring crack of wood splintering broke the silence, sending a shock of fear surging through her. "Now!" she screamed. With her children clinging to her, they plunged into the abyss of the basement, the door slamming shut behind them, as if sealing their fates from the terrors that lurked above, and just as the last shreds of light faded, an icy stillness followed. She held her breath, and then they heard it, a low, rhythmic scratching sound creeping closer to the door. What was waiting for them in the dark? The basement smelled of damp earth and forgotten things, a cold embrace that sent shivers down Lily's spine. She held her breath, feeling the weight of the darkness surround her. Emily squeezed her hand, her grip sweaty, and Noah burst into quiet sobs, burying his face in her side. "Shoo, it's okay," Lily whispered, but her own voice seemed to tremble. She peered into the blackness, desperate for any shred of light, but it was swallowed whole. The scratching grew louder, clawing against the wood, an insistent reminder that doom was too close. "Mommy, is it coming?" Noah whimpered. Lily squeezed him tighter, her heart pounding like a war drum in her ears. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we need to stay quiet." The words felt hollow even as they left her lips. Whatever was up there didn't seem like it would take quiet for an answer. The scratching stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that stretched out, thickening the air around them. Time passed in slow, agonizing drips. Each second felt like an eternity. Suddenly, a faint scrape erupted from the metal door, a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Mommy Emily's voice was tremulous. "I think it's here." "No. Don't look," Lily belligerently hissed. She turned her body, creating a barrier between the door and her children. She needed to be their shield, even if she felt like a fool standing against the darkness, but curiosity thrummed in the air. It clung to her thoughts. What if it was someone who was just lost? Someone who needed help? The thought twisted in her mind. Sarah, the call, the figure at the door. Was anyone really safe? As if on cue, a soft thump came from above, followed by the distinct crash of furniture skidding across the floor. The scuttling resumed outside, growing chaotic, frantic, crushing any last bits of her resolve. "We should go," she murmured, looking around the black expanse for a way out. The basement had no windows, but remnants of old furniture dotted the room: boxes, an old chair, a dusty table, anything that could provide both cover and a potential escape route. Gripped by instinct, Lily started pushing the boxes against the door. "Help me," she whispered urgently, and the children joined her in this frantic effort, their small bodies working to barricade the door as best as they could. A loud bang reverberated through the basement, shaking the air, drowning her thoughts in fear. The children's eyes were wide and glistening with terrified tears. "And Mommy, it doesn't sound normal," Emily stammered. Lily stopped, her heart racing as she listened. The sounds were changing, shifting from a simple scratching to a guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through the very walls around them. Whatever was outside was no longer trying to come in. It was angry. A sudden voice pierced through the dark, a piercing scream, almost deafening, that echoed through the basement. Lily's heart sank, realizing it was the same unrecognizable voice she heard on the phone. The darkness crept deeper at the edges of her vision, swallowing her sanity. "Lily," it breathed. The chilling sound seemed to curl around her like smoke. A never-ending nightmare that could consume them whole. "Mommy, it's coming," Noah yelled as he pointed toward the crack between the door and the floor, where shadows writhed as if alive. They had very little time left. She needed to think. But fear clouded her mind. Was there a way out? The stairs, perhaps. Just as she was about to make a decision, the door bulged, slamming against the barricade. For a moment, it held. But then splinters flew as the door buckled. Terror seized Lily. She could see the outline of the figure now, looming in the doorway. The eyes reflected a sickly yellow glow, like a predator about to pounce. In that moment, Lily knew. They were about to be confronted by the very thing she feared. "Run!" she shouted, urgency pouring from her lips as she grabbed her children. With nowhere to go, they rounded the pile of boxes, searching for an exit into the unknown shadows of the basement. But what would they discover in the dark? What other horrors awaited them down there? The shadows enveloped them like a suffocating blanket as they moved blindly through the cramped basement. Every sound became amplified, the soft thump of their footsteps, the rasping breath of fear, and a low growl that resonated from behind. They stumbled over furniture, every scrape against the floor mocking their desperate escape. "Mommy, I can't see!" Emily cried, her voice a mix of panic and confusion. "Just hold my hand." Lily hissed back, her own heart racing. She turned the children tightly in front of her, shielding their eyes from whatever the darkness harbored. Their only source of light came from the flickering fear in her chest. Suddenly, the growling transitioned to a heavy panting. It was close. Lily squeezed Emily's hand, urging them towards a corner, where an old, rusted grate caught her eye. Maybe they could crawl through. It was their only hope. "Get ready," Lily whispered, bending down to examine the opening. She winced at the sound of her own voice, as if saying it out loud would draw the entity even closer. "I think we can fit Mommy." Noah whimpered, his small voice breaking her concentration. She turned, seeing his eyes filled with fear. For a moment, regret washed over her. Were they any safer down here? What if it gets us? Stay together. No matter what, she replied firmly, though her mind raced through 1,000 what-ifs. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the basement, reverberating off the damp walls. A sudden chill swept through, making her shudder. The door they had barricaded was giving way, pieces splintering off as the unseen thing pushed with monstrous force. "Run!" It was a shout of desperation now, a primal scream. She grabbed both children, dragging them toward the grate. But as she stepped forward, a shadow darted across the periphery of her vision, dark and swift. "Lily!" Emily yelled, the urgency in her voice snapping her back into focus. The figure loomed closer, its outline monstrous, impossibly tall. Where there should have been a head, there was only a swirling mass of darkness. Her breath hitched as she felt something brush against her leg, something cold and wet. A hand. A claw. The panic surged. She needed to move faster. Shoving her children toward the grate, Lily pushed and pulled, ignoring the raw panic clawing at her throat. They had to make it out. "Come on. You can do it." She propelled Noah through the narrow opening, and he squeaked as he tumbled onto the other side. Emily teetered at the edge, hesitating, her fear palpable. "Help me, Mommy!" she cried, her voice laced with despair. Lily glanced over her shoulder. The figure was closer, its breath hot and rancid. She couldn't let it reach them. "Emily! Now!" With a fierce grip, she yanked her daughter toward the grate. Just as Emily squeezed through, the door exploded inward. Shards of wood flew like projectiles, the air thick with splintered chaos. Lily ducked, using her body as a barrier against the intrusion. The growling turned into howling, a sound that splintered realities. In her gut, she felt the weight of all that was unnatural, a confidence that something too foreign to comprehend was here. As the darkness writhed and surged forward, Lily pushed her way through the grate, her thoughts only on escape. They were in a tunnel of fear, a serpentine corridor leading to the unknown. But even as they crawled away, the shadows clawed at their heels. Something was left behind, something that would not easily let them go. "Mommy!" Emily's voice trembled, the fear seeping back into their minds. "Keep going," Lily urged, a desperate edge creeping into her voice. The tunnel felt alive, vibrating with a pulse that resonated with the whisper of what they had just escaped, but as they emerged into another dark room, a thought pressed at the back of Lily's mind. What if they had only jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire? And then, from behind them, a voice echoed again, purring in the dark. "We're not done, not yet." They stumbled out of the tunnel and into a musty, dimly lit room, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Lily held Emily and Noah close, her ragged heartbeat thundering in her ears as they all huddled in a corner. The air was heavy, stifling, and smelled of decay. Flickering shadows danced across the walls, and just like before, the oppressive darkness felt hungry. "Stay quiet," Lily urged, whispering as the weight of silence absorbed her words. The children nodded, eyes wide and glistening with tears. They could hear the low purring sound again, resonating through the air like a sinister lullaby. It was haunting. Unnatural. Lily's instincts screamed at her to move, to find an escape, to break free from this nightmare. "What do we do?" Noah whispered, clinging to her leg. Lily quickly scanned the room. It was cluttered with old boxes and broken furniture, remnants of a life long forgotten. A gnawing fear took root in her stomach. Where were they? "Just keep quiet," she repeated, backing away from an unseen threat. If the figure had followed them into this new space, she couldn't let it corner them again. Suddenly, a soft thud echoed from the far corner, amplifying the sound in the thick atmosphere. Lily's heart leaped into her throat, straining to listen. The low growl morphed into laughter, a childlike cackle that sent chills crawling across her skin. "Oh my God," she breathed, shaking her head as if she could will it away. The shadows seemed to stretch and breathe, twisting into grotesque shapes. "Mommy, I'm scared." Emily's voice broke. "Shoo! Don't make a sound," Lily commanded, but dread filled her when she caught a glimpse of the shadow moving, slithering toward them, fluid and twisted. Just then, a flicker of light caught her eye, a bare bulb dangling from the ceiling, swaying gently. Lily reached for it, her mind racing. There had to be something. Something they could use to defend themselves. Beneath her fingers, she felt something cold, a broken shard of glass, jagged and sharp. The shadows stirred, their movement synchronized with the purr that resonated in her bones. She had a choice: lunge at whatever prowled the room or flee deeper into the darkness. But just as she began to prepare for the inevitable confrontation, she realized something was different. Mommy, Noah's voice trembled as he pointed a finger. "What's that?" Lily turned, her heart plummeting. In the corner of the room, a dark shape emerged, shifting in and out of focus, like a film reel coming into clarity. It was a girl, pale as a ghost, with wide, empty eyes that seemed to pull at their very souls. "Help me," the child whispered, her voice echoing with 1,000 tortured cries. Lily's instincts screamed danger, a facade of innocence hiding something sinister. "Stay close," she hissed to her kids as the girl beckoned with her frail hand, inviting them forward. "I can show you a way out," the girl cooed, her voice laced with an alluring chill that wrapped itself around them. Something deep in Lily's gut warned her to resist. Maybe this was just another trap, another way for the darkness to ensnare them. The laughter from behind now echoed, a thunderous crescendo that made the walls vibrate, but they were out of options. Alone and frightened. This could be the break they needed or the end. "Please trust me," the girl's eyes gleamed, mirroring something Lily dare not acknowledge lurking within her own heart. As she took a step forward, ready to reach for the phantom child, she could almost feel the air shifting, thickening around them. But the shadows surged forth, and behind them, the guttural voice filled the room one last time. "You think you can escape?" With a deafening roar, the shadows crashed against them like a wall of darkness, closing in. What will happen now? In the swirl of chaos, the way out seemed to be slipping away. The darkness engulfed them, swallowing every breath. The children clung to Lily, their small bodies trembling, hearts racing in unison with the increasing terror that filled the room. The weight of shadows pressed down on them, a tangible force that threatened to crush their wills. One heartbeat, then another, before a cold laugh echoed around them, rich with malice and longing. "Help me," the ghostly girl lingered in their minds like a haunting melody, weaving through their thoughts. But she didn't belong to a world of safety. No, she belonged to this place, a realm where nightmares took form and became flesh. "Run!" Lily shouted, her voice breaking through the thick air. She pulled Noah and Emily with her, adrenaline fueling her limbs, when suddenly, the shadows surged, a mass of swirling darkness hungry for their fear. The once familiar space dissolved into an unrecognizable expanse, the walls twisting and snaking like living creatures. Just as she turned to flee, the jagged shard in her hand glinted under the flickering light. "Mommy, the light!" Emily screamed, pointing up as the bare bulb swung wildly, illuminating the filigree of terror around them. With a surge of desperation, Lily raised the shard, ready to counter whatever loomed in the slathering darkness, but even as she soared from childlike dread to unchecked rage, she hesitated. The ghostly girl smiled wider, an expression devoid of innocence. "What if I can protect you?" Freezing breath kissed her neck as the shadows shivered with delight at the thought of her surrender. What if it was true? The girl's promise flickered like a beacon of hope, a tempting allure in the madness. The shattered glass felt heavy in her palm, and her pulse quickened with indecision. "Noah, Emily!" Lily shouted, urgency tearing through her mind. Stay close. She pushed them behind her, eyes darting to the shifting forms around them. Shadows drifted, pulsating like a heartbeat. Each moment threaded heavy and thin, as if they were caught on the precipice of something horrific. Footsteps echoed now, one solid, resonating, like a countdown to despair. No longer just whispers, the room itself seemed alive, taunting them at every turn, as if the very walls and the air were laughing at their struggle. Come play. The girl's voice twisted, blending with the laughter that reverberated beyond the walls, the shadows closing in tighter, suffocating any escape they had hoped for. Don't listen to her. Lily countered, as doubt clawed at her bravado. She could feel her resolve slipping with every thud of her heart. We need to find a way to break free. We can't trust her. But the shadows danced, shifting into terrible forms, closer now. Help me find them, the girl continued, her tone familiar yet foreign, echoing the sound of a forgotten lullaby. No. Lily shrieked, breaking into a near cry. She could not let her children fall into this trap, not when the truth of the shadows seeped beneath her skin. We need to keep moving. The room pulsated, shadows alive with intent, the walls extending cysts of darkness that threatened to spill forth and crush them. Would they stand and fight, or succumb to the chilling embrace of despair? She made her choice. Run. In an explosive burst, she propelled herself toward the far wall, hoping to find a door, a crack, anything that might lead them to safety. Through the swirling chaos, the children followed, screams ripping from their lips, but they were not alone. A hand shot out from the darkness, reaching for Noah, fingers stretching like icy tendrils. Time slowed, terror coiled in Lily's throat, paralyzing her as she lunged, desperate to protect her child. Mommy! Noah cried, his world becoming the darkness. With one final, horrified gasp, she leapt to her boy, but what if she couldn't reach him in time? As shadows wrapped around her, Lily felt the frigid grip of despair tightening, and the suffocating darkness threatened to consume them all. What had she put them into? Did they dare let go and trust the ghostly girl? Or would they fight against the consuming hunger of the void that increasingly felt like home? The shadows surged, eager for their decision in the dark. Lily's scream sliced through the chaos as she reached for Noah. The shadows lashed out, some whispering promises of safety, others urging her to join them. Fear and rage intertwining within her, she finally grasped Noah's wrist, pulling him back with a fierce determination. But the darkness was greedy, relentless in its pursuit. Emily tugged at her leg, her eyes wide with terror. Mommy, please. You have to hold on to me. Lily shouted, her voice echoing against the shifting walls. Her heart raced, every beat a reminder that time was slipping away. The shadows rushed forward, consuming space like a monstrous tide threatening to drown them. With no time to think, Lily sprinted toward the far edge of the room. The air crackled with energy, despair clawing at her footsteps. The cold laughter persisted, multiplying with each second, taunting her, feeding on her dread. Help me. The ghostly girl chimed, but Lily pushed the thought aside. It was a trap, she could feel it. Keep running. She urged her children, willing her legs to move faster. Hope was fading like the dim light above, now swinging wildly as if possessed. The walls shuddered, pulsating as if alive. In the depths of the darkness, shapes took form, twisted faces, elongated limbs reaching out, mirroring her nightmares. Each silhouette snarled, hungry and close, their mouths forming words that racked her with dread. Leave us alone. Lily screamed, raising the shard of glass high. It glimmered, a hesitant spark of defiance against the engulfing void. We want to play your game. But the fractured filaments of light only egged the shadows on. They surged closer, the promise of safety from the ghostly girl slithering back into her thoughts. What if they surrendered? What if trust in this chilling entity was their only chance? A breath caught in her throat as she nearly stumbled. For the briefest moment, doubt wrapped around her. But then she felt Noah's small hand gripping hers tightly, his body vibrating with fear but also with a spark of determination. Mommy! Noah gasped. The shadows were almost upon them. No. There has to be a way out. Lily gritted her teeth, forcing herself to heed his courage. They raced along the wall, desperate. A shift in the air brushed against her skin, and she felt a pull, something more solid than the shadows around them. A door. She pressed forward, forcing her children with her, but the shadows writhed, battling for her attention. Help me find them. Echoed in her mind, urgency twisted and true. Out. Now. Lily barked, her voice rising above the cacophony of despair. She threw herself at the door, which creaked ominously as she yanked on the rusted handle. It gave way, but what greeted them was not the relief she longed for. Instead, an empty hallway stretched before them. A dim light flickered at the far end, but the shadows were undeterred. They poured through the threshold, hungry, a monstrous tide threatening to pull them back into the void. Mommy! Emily whimpered, eyes darting back at the swirling darkness. What do we do? Run for the light. They darted into the hallway, but every step sent waves of dread coursing through them. The shadows snarled, an angry storm chasing them down the corridor, and Lily could feel their icy breath against her neck. Echoing laughter rolled in behind, echoing in syncopation with the children's frantic breaths. Turn! Noah yelled, pointing down a narrow passage, a glimmering exit at the far end, but as they veered left, an unseen force slammed the wall, making them stumble. The whispers turned to screams, the malevolence thickening, wrapping around them like chains. Stay with us. The shadows cackled. Don't look back. Lily's voice cracked as they pressed forward. Could they truly escape? Or was this corridor just another trap, leading them deeper into a realm of nightmares? With each pounding heartbeat, Lily felt the suffocating weight of despair. She glanced back just once only to see the swirling whirl of darkness inching closer, hungry for their fear, demanding their surrender. Faster! She urged, the bitter taste of panic igniting her muscles. Then came a rumble. The ground beneath trembled like the grumble of awakening darkness. What now? Emily screamed, panic rising in her voice as the walls began to close in. Would they make it to the light? Or would they be swallowed whole by the shadows they fled? The passage sealed tightly behind them, but there was no turning back. They had chosen to face whatever awaited them ahead. The light flickered, a beacon of hope, or was it a final trick? And as they dashed forward, the laughter behind them intensified, filled with hunger and nightmares yet untold. The flickering light grew brighter, illuminating the corridor like a fading candle threatened by the gusts of an unseen storm. Each step propelled by fear, Lily urged her children onward, shaking off the heavy tendrils of dread that wrapped around her mind. The laughter of the shadows echoed louder, mocking their frantic escape. Lily's heart raced. Could they outrun the darkness clawing at their backs? Just a little more. She shouted, her voice strained. Noah's grip tightened around her hand, his small fingers shaking with terror. She cast a quick glance at him. Tears streamed down his face, but his jaw clenched in determination. It fueled her resolve, even if the shadows snickered at their efforts. Over there. Emily pointed to a door barely visible in the distance, its surface marred and peeling but still standing defiantly against the encroaching void. Desperate, they bolted toward it. They reached the door, but as Lily yanked on the handle, it refused to budge. No. Come on. Panic surged through her chest. The laughter behind them morphed into a screech, reverberating like a window shattering, and the darkness surged forward, tangible and feral. Mommy, please help. Noah cried, and in that instant, the promise of destruction loomed. With a rattle of nerves, Lily switched tactics. She shoved her shoulder against the door, pushing with all her strength. The wood creaked ominously. A surge of cold air rushed over her, plucking at her skin like 1,000 icy fingers. The shadows nearly swallowed them whole now, their whispers rising to a deafening crescendo. Join us, it's safer with us, shut up. She screamed, throwing her weight again. The door groaned, then finally parted, revealing a dark room beyond a sanctuary or a new nightmare. Without hesitation, she ushered the kids inside, slamming the door shut behind them. The room was cramped, bare except for a single flickering bulb that swung overhead, casting eerie shadows across the damp walls. Lily took a deep breath, allowing a moment of respite. But the air was thick with darkness, swallowing any semblance of calm. Emptiness clawed at her senses, and she felt the familiar chill creeping back, slithering into her thoughts. Was this just another trap? Emily clung to her side, eyes wide with fright. "Mommy, what if they find us?" "Not if we keep quiet," Lily whispered, wishing her own voice sounded more confident. "We need to stay still." They huddled together, listening for signs of the shadow's arrival. Seconds felt like hours as the pounding echoes of their hearts filled the silence. But the laughter had faded, replaced by an unsettling stillness, as if the shadows were merely waiting for the right moment to attack. Then came a different sound, a soft scratching against the door, like nails dragging across wood. Lily stiffened, her breath hitching in her throat. "What is that?" Noah's eyes darted to the door. "It's them, they're here." "Stay quiet," she hissed. The scratching grew louder, more frantic, echoing the urgency in her veins. Suddenly, a low voice crept through the door. "Lily, we just want to play." Lily's stomach twisted. "They know my name." She gasped, feeling sick. "They want us to open the door." Then, amidst the scratching and whispers, the air shifted again, darkening, as the shadows outside surged with anticipation. What did they want? Why couldn't they just leave them alone? Emily crouched closer, trembling but silent. Lily held her breath, praying the door would hold. But a sudden crash shattered their fragile refuge as the door splintered, a darkness gathering like a storm as the laughter returned, loud and raucous, echoing promises and threats. The way they were coming in, she could see it. A thin slice of darkness slipping through the broken doorway, reaching, grasping. "Run!" Lily shouted, but in the moment of chaos, she could only hope they had enough time. As they broke for the back of the room, a promise of safety, maybe, Lily glanced behind to see the shadows multiplying, spreading like oil across the floor, but there was something scarier, a glimmer beyond the darkness. A promise of light, but not the faint flicker of hope she had seen before. "Something bright, Mommy, what's that?" Noah whimpered, his voice barely a whisper. "Stay close." But hope flickered like the failing bulb above, and her heart sank. They had to make a choice. The light pulsed invitingly, but would they find salvation or something worse waiting to greet them? And as they hesitated, horror dripped with each second, the shadows looming ever closer, whispering sweetly in the dark, "You can't escape us." The pulsing light beckoned them, a heartbeat against the oppressive darkness. For a brief moment, hope warred with terror in Lily's mind. Was it truly salvation, or a trap laid by the shadows? The scratching at the door resumed, more violent now, splinters raining down like confetti of despair. "Go!" Lily shouted, shoving her children toward the brightness. But her feet wouldn't move. Fear coiled around her ankles, anchoring her to the spot as the darkness writhed and surged. Emily turned to her, eyes wide and pleading. "Mommy, please. Stay together." Lily urged, forcing herself to step forward. She felt the chill in the air intensify, creeping along her spine like ice. The shadows whispered promises as they crawled through the splintered door, tendrils sliding closer. Hungry, Noah moved to grasp the light, his small fingers reaching out for its warmth. It was intoxicating, glowing bright against their pale, terrified faces. Yet beneath that light was a void, an echoing whisper that tugged at his curiosity. "Is it safe?" His voice trembled. I don't know," Lily admitted, her throat dry as sandpaper. The shadows paused, hungering for doubt, feeding off every moment they hesitated. With every ounce of will, she tore her gaze from the radiant light and glanced back. The door was now nearly unrecognizable, an evolving shape of dark malice. She could almost see faces in it, twisted and mournful. The scratching became a chorus of pleading cries, wrapping around her like a noose. "Mommy! We can't just stay here," Emily whimpered, her voice rising in panic. "Just a little longer," Lily replied, trying to hold her promise together with trembling threads. "Let me think." But time was slipping. The shadows lunged, breaking through the door, their forms undulating like smoke becoming solid. Lily's heart raced, each beat pounding against her ribs, urging her forward. "Help us. Play with us, Lily." They sang, an unholy harmony that chilled her heart. "No!" Lily screamed, breaking free from her paralysis. "We want to play." Hand in hand, she yanked Noah and Emily toward the light, ready to plunge into its unknown depths. But a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the flickering bulb. Darkness swallowed them again, deeper this time. Not just absence of light, but thick, charging blackness. "No! No!" Lily shouted, the shadows darting around them as if tasting the air for their fears. They pressed closer, voices rising in pitch, a cacophony of chaos. Suddenly, a shrill laugh emerged from the darkness, piercing through the noise. "You can't shut us out, Lily. We're part of you. Run!" She cried again, feeling the oppressive weight of those words suffocating her. They rushed toward the fading light, desperation fueling their flight. The pulsing became staggered, fading, but every step they took, the shadows reached for them, slowing their escape. "Mommy!" Noah's scream shattered her focus. He tripped, falling to the floor, the shadows grabbing at his feet like hands through a broken veil. "Leave him!" Lily screamed, diving forward, grasping him in a fierce hold, yanking him back. They moved together, but with each passing second, the darkness clawed at their skin, stripping away their resolve. "Do you want to stay?" It whispered, the shadows dancing around them, swirling with tempting promises. "You could be ours." Lily could see it, the last remnants of light dimming, the doorway to salvation closing. Was it really threatened? Or were there consequences she could not comprehend? "Mommy! I can't hold on!" Noah cried, tears sputtering from his eyes. Lily braced for the inevitable, frantically searching for an answer before the door vanished completely. In those final desperate moments, Lily spotted something amidst the chaos, a rusty, warped handle protruding from the wall, obscured by shadows. Could it open a new escape, or seal their fate for good? As she reached for it, the voices crescendoed with fevered delight. "Let go of your fears. Join us forever." Everything hinged on that inch. Could she risk everything? Before she could make her choice, the shadows lunged in. A final, furious attack. "Mommy!" As their cries merged into a singular note of horror, Lily grasped the handle. Would it turn? Her heart pounded, the world narrowed to just that moment. What had she just unleashed? The handle turned, creaking under the strain with a sound sharp enough to shatter the chaos around them. Lily felt a surge of hope mingled with terror. This could be their escape or an open door to worse horrors. An icy rush of unseen air gusted as the door swung open, revealing a blinding light that flooded in like a tidal wave. "Go! Now!" she shouted, her voice a raw tremor that seemed to echo in the void. The shadows howled in fury, their desperate cries ricocheting off the walls. She shoved Noah and Emily ahead of her, their small bodies rushing into the radiance, pulling her forward with all their remaining strength. They stumbled through the threshold, the light wrapping around them like a safety blanket, both warm and familiar. With one last glance behind, Lily saw the shadows thrashing and flailing, arms stretching toward the light but unable to breach the barrier that now separated them. The air felt electric. "Mommy!" Emily gasped, turning to see if Lily would follow. Lily took a deep breath, gathered the last shreds of her courage, and stepped through. As she entered the light, a sensation of weightlessness enveloped her, and a blissful warmth chased away the cold knots of dread that had coiled within her. For a moment, everything was a blur of light and love. When the brightness faded, they found themselves in the living room of their home, as if nothing had happened. The warm familiar glow of the late afternoon sun poured through the front window, and the sounds of laughter floated in from the neighbors' yards. It was as if the horrors of the basement and the shadows had never existed at all. "Is it over?" Noah asked, his voice small and laden with disbelief. "It has to be," Lily replied, her heart soaring in her chest but uncertainty nagging at the edges of her mind. "Mommy, I was so scared," Emily added, her words trembling, tears pooling in her eyes. Lily knelt, wrapping her arms tightly around her children, drawing them close. The panic ebbed from her chest, but the remnants of fear still clung to her thoughts. "I know, baby. I know. But we're safe now. You're safe." The phone rang, slicing through their moment of relief. It was an unlisted number. They exchanged wary glances. Lily's heart raced as the sound continued. But it was just her imagination, right? She couldn't open the door to terror again. "Maybe it's just some weird joke," Noah said, but the fear reflected in his eyes betrayed his words. "Mommy," Emily piped up, her chin quivering. "What if they come back?" The shadows that had encroached upon their lives might still be lurking at the edges of reality, fading or perhaps waiting, just waiting for a moment of weakness to strike again. "We'll do what we need to protect ourselves," Lily declared, though the firmness in her voice felt feeble against the old fears that came rushing back. "I promise. We won't let whatever happened happen again." Just as she stood to connect the call, strong arms encircled them from behind. It was Sarah. Relief mixed with confusion swirled in Lily's heart. "Thank God you're okay." But a haunting reminder slipped into her thoughts. "Are you okay, Sarah?" Lily asked, her voice cautious as she stepped away just slightly. The shadows had played mind games before there had been a moment of connection that had led them astray. "I'm fine," Sarah said, a bit too smoothly, her eyes holding an enigmatic glint. "Just wanted to check on my best friend. I heard some commotion." Lily felt her heart race. She wasn't sure if this was a trick or a truth, but the shadows wouldn't get to her again. "You'll never come near my kids again," she asserted, her voice edged with a newfound fierceness. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting soft shadows in their living room, Lily knew she had to keep them safe. Be vigilant, be strong. Together, they would create new memories laden with laughter and light, leaving the past locked away in a dark compartment of their hearts. They had escaped once, and they would fight to ensure shadows would only exist in stories, not realities. With a decisive breath, she snapped forward, ready to protect what mattered most. "Let us get dinner started," she said, summoning a smile, and as they moved together, hand in hand, she made a silent promise to embed in their lives that light would always hold stronger than darkness. Even if the shadows remembered her name. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Their support is what keeps this community alive.